Is Bitcoin an asset class? The IRS thinks it is, making it official. Drill results and news. A lot of significant news from your favorite juniors to get through. Copper over 350. Gold around the 1840 level. Bitcoin flirting with 20,000. Monoliths. Warner Brothers. The dollar collapse. Trump. All sorts of things to get into. We are back to our regularly scheduled program. I am Gerardo Del Real, along with my co-host, the world famous Mr. Nick Hodge. This is episode 96 of Bizarro World. Nick, I missed you last week. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
I missed you too, Gerardo. I was thankful for what we have together and continue to be, and I'm happy to be back at it on Bizarro World this week.
It's a lot of celebrating at the Hodge household. You had Thanksgiving recently. You'll have a birthday this coming week. So an early happy birthday to you, young man.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Just a man now, not too young.
What's that make me, Nick? Let's get right into it. I've never seen more nervous gold bulls with gold at these levels. Have you?
Yeah, they're nervous. I mean, if you listen to the vocal ones and the diehards, but I don't think you have to be nervous. I just think you have to understand what's going on, which we can obviously talk about. You and I have said for a while that even if gold pulls back to 800 or below it, which
1800, not 800.
Oh, excuse me, 1800.
Don't scare people. Below. They're already afraid, Nick.
No, they're already on edge. I know. To 1800 or even below it, which it did, it's still a very high gold price. And we look at projects that are very profitable and have sensitivities that allow them to be very good investments, even at those prices. But to put it in old school language, the script flipped. I mean, for a while, gold was inversely correlated to the dollar. So when the dollar was going down, gold was going up. And just very recently here, those things switched around and the correlations changed. So when the dollar was going down, gold was going down with it. And so that portends what you've said all along. If that relationship is going to hold, which we have to see, then, when it turns back around and the dollar starts going back up, then gold goes back up with it, which in your words is the mark of a truly sustainable gold bull market. And there's a number of reasons for this: the election of Joe Biden, the effects of any potential vaccines that are coming, et cetera. And so it's very complex and somewhat hard to understand, but no one can synthesize all of the market inputs and understand it all simultaneously or omnipresently, right? And so I have trouble making sense of it too, but that's what's going on at the end of the day. And as I was writing this week, that's not to say that inflation isn't gone. That's not to say that the stimulus dollars and the money printing isn't being priced in. It clearly is. You were talking about copper at 350, which is a 5-year high, and for crying out loud, Bitcoin went to an all-time high while gold was going down. Speaking of correlations, so that inflation is still manifesting places, just not, at least for the moment, in gold. And look, gold was back up in the past couple of days, right, to 1830 or something. So. Look, it's, I don't think it's anything to be fearful of. If anything, it was an opportunity, right? Because, I remember talking with you on this podcast a couple of weeks ago about taking profits in names like Almond, and look how that worked out. Selling stock at $1.40 that then falls below $1 and you can buy it back. So, I mean, it's not,
and I did,
it's not fear, it's opportunity, right?
Absolutely. And I think context is critical, right? If you look at a 1-year chart of gold, the 1-year low is 1459, people. It's at 1837. Relax, rotate some capital into your favorite names. Favorite names, by the way, that are now starting to deliver some spectacular results. We're seeing drill results and deals left and right, despite the multiple lab delays with companies like New Placer Dome Gold and Nevada Sunrise Gold. There are companies that are delivering to the market. Chicana just announced another 12.2 meters of 13.61 grams per ton gold equivalent from 21.6 meters. That included 5.76 grams per ton gold, 2.98% copper, and 252 grams per ton silver. You're getting these types of results from Chicana every single week to week and a half. And drills are turning. They're drilling the prospect that many within the company believe is the most prospective, which again, if you think these numbers are exciting and they think that's the better target, I think there's 11 holes drilled into that already. Juan Carama, which the transcriber, as you know, believes is Juan Carama. And so...
and I had some fun with Juan Carama.
Let's keep to Peru. Hannon just announced a deal. For all the naysayers about Michael Hudson and all the naysayers about, the part of Peru that the company was operating in. Look, I haven't been there, but I know that JogMec does a phenomenal deal or a phenomenal job of vetting deals. And so for them to commit up to 35 million US to deliver to the joint venture a feasibility study is a vote of confidence that is good enough for me. Now, mind you, I am biased. I've bet on Michael Hudson, as you have, Nick, since the very early stages. And it's interesting because I was listening back to the very first episode of Bizarro World. It was right after New Year's, and we handed out some awards. And Hannon at the time was the most disappointing stock performance on your list that year. And what a difference 2 years makes, right? We didn't quit on the team. We didn't quit on the asset. We knew at the time 2 years ago, they had pivoted into Peru and were busy staking this basin scale project. And so to see it now with a deep pocketed partner that will allow for very, very aggressive exploration is nothing short of incredible work by Mr. Hudson and the team. And he should be commended. Of note, there's still nearly 300 square kilometers that fall outside of this joint venture. And so I would caution everyone that thinks that, they gave up 75% in exchange for 35 million US. Go look at some of those other projects outside of the 656 square kilometers. There's some gold projects that look good, some copper gold projects that look good, some copper gold silver projects that look good. I think there's still a lot to like with Hannon. Any thoughts on Hannon, Nick?
Well, I was glad to be able to say JogMec a couple times throughout the week. It was
JogMec.
Congratulations to Michael Hudson. It's good when you can write checks to a company at 10 or 15 cents, and then it goes to 54 cents, and you have warrants as well, right? Which is something else I was talking about this week. And so exactly as you say, pivot from, zinc in Ireland to copper in Peru with a sedimentary hosted basin of shale copper. And so, in my mind, it's de-risked now, right? I mean, you got somebody coming in and, as you pointed out, paying more than Hannon's market cap for 3/4 of the project. We have wards that are in the money. The stock saw a lot of liquidity. I mean, that's a win all around in my book, right?
Absolutely. And if you know Michael Hudson, he's a deal maker. He's not done. It would not surprise me for him to really, of course, focus on San Martin, but at the same time, simultaneously advanced 100% owned projects in that other nearly 300 square kilometers, and possibly even joint venture a couple of those as well. So I think, there were delays due to COVID. We didn't see the drilling that we hoped for this year in Peru. But I think 2021 is going to be a stellar year. Another company we have to mention is K2 Gold. Just in phenomenal numbers from the high-grade oxide gold Mojave project in California. We'll talk about California in a bit, but it drilled 86.9 meters of 4 grams per ton gold from surface. First 3 drill holes all hit very, very good grades, and assays pending. John Robbins, chairman of K2 Gold, commented about how excited he is and how much he's looking forward to the results that are pending. Steven Swatton, of course, was excited. I myself and subscribers were excited to see it. Great numbers. Thoughts on K2, Nick?
Only that shares were cheaper than they were when the earlier exploration was going on because of the fear you mentioned in the gold space. So again, I'd say opportunity.
Opportunity is right. Same with Chicana. Let's talk critical metals. Let's talk rare earths. I wrote a small piece today that you can find at Resource Stock Digest, or you can find on the Twitter feed there. But the rare earth prices, the various names, right, which are all tongue twisters, but they're up 17, 29, 30%. And companies like Energy Fuels, which we highlighted 2 weeks ago, we're up 17% today. Leading Edge Materials, which we've told you for, years that Nora Shah is a real asset. The portfolio of critical metals properties that they have in that company are top notch. And, it was up at one point 44% today before settling back down. But these are names that you should have on your radar, folks, because when these names get going, the amount of money that comes into these smaller cap names makes for outsized moves to the upside. And so it's been a long waiting game with Leading Edge Materials. It clearly has the attention of the markets now. Same for Energy Fuels, which just recently announced that it had produced the first rare earth concentrate in the US in, I think, over 20 years, right? And that went under the radar when I interviewed Curtis Moore back in November, but they're waking up now.
I mean, yeah, and you got the Mountain Pass thing that went and listed. That was fortunate to get readers in that around $14. It changes its name from Fortress Value to Mountain Pass and goes from $14 to $23 in a couple of weeks. That's good work if you can get it. And it's not just the rare earths. It seems like all these quote unquote battery metals or clean tech metals seem to just be catching a bid right now. The lithium stocks are doing well, or Cobre is well over $3 Canadian, for example. And they just seem to be catching a bid, even uranium stocks, with or without news. I mean, you have a Zargo that had the permitting news, of course, and but then you get the creation of this U.S. strategic reserve, right? And so the interesting time to be in the space and to be looking across really the whole natural resource sector and not just the gold names, right?
I am as excited for 2021 in all sectors, gold, copper, lithium, rare earths, as I am for my vaccine, which, as you all know, has prevented me from enjoying some of the finer delights in life for the last 9 months. And so I'm excited for that. We have to talk vaccines. We didn't really mention them as they relate to the surge in the overall indices, which of course are all hitting record highs, and not just here in the States, by the way. There's a global reflation of stock price or stocks in general, companies and their asset values, but everything seems to be going up right now and catching a bid. We now have 3 vaccines with 90% or greater efficiency, supposedly. Are you getting the pokey poke, Nick?
I was talking to my friends about this. If it's a multiple choice test right now, the answer is like D, not enough information to decide. I don't know. It seems like, a couple of things. One, first of all, we talked about a while ago, this vaccine isn't going to be widely available for some time, even if it is developed and approved for supply chain issues that are starting to come to light this week. We saw Pfizer start to talk about why its vaccine isn't going to be out as early as first thought. And now we're seeing everything from, terrorists hacking, slowing down the supply chain, to the mafia intercepting it to getting its hands on it. And so I think you're going to see problems with the rollout. I think you obviously see more susceptible groups, higher risk groups, offered the vaccine first. And so we'll see when it truly comes out. I continue to be interested in a therapy as well as a vaccine, which is something that I've written about, an antibody focused therapy that can essentially, cure or treat the virus for those infected. And so I'm not sure, Gerardo. If it were to come out right now, I likely would not get it. Does that make me bad?
No, I don't think there's a good or a bad. I think it's great that we are at a point with this pandemic where we'll have a choice, right? And so I've always been cautious in my interactions with everyone out of respect and caution for really the people that are most vulnerable. I'm fortunate enough to be very healthy and have a great immune system, knock on wood, and rarely, get sick. And so I'm not so concerned about myself, but I do have people around me that have compromised immune systems. And my biggest fear has always been, potentially me being asymptomatic or me having a mild case of this, but unbeknownst to me, infecting someone and them having real repercussions. I did not want that on my conscience. And so I've been willing to make, small sacrifices the past 9 months and like I said, forsake some of the finer delights in life, to not have that burden, right? And so I like having the choice. If offered and available, I'll likely be naked, upside down with sunlight on my butt, and I'll take it with a shot of bleach and a smile on my face, Nick.
From the inside. Is there a way you can do that, like internally?
Don't know.
I'm gonna miss him in that respect.
Let's talk to Trumpster. He's doing what hustlers do. He's raised over $400 million, I think, since losing the election. This despite the fact that his White House communications director just resigned. Well, if there is no communications director, I hate to break it to the Trump fans out there, there's probably no Trump in the White House, right? And so who keeps giving this guy money?
Well, I don't know, but obviously he's a hustler and he's going to parlay this into something, media or hotel or otherwise, right? And so I don't know who keeps giving him money, but what do you think?
I think, and I hate to say this because I don't want to insult anybody, and I know that not all Trump supporters are this because I have friends and acquaintances that are Trump supporters for their own reasons, but I do think there's a small segment of Trump supporters that are almost cultish. And I misspoke, by the way. It wasn't 400 million. It was only 207.5 million since the election. Okay. But I do think that, there's a small segment of his base that is almost cultish and just has identified with Trump and the campaign the way that kids identify with gangs and turn into gangbangers in the inner city, right? And run around, doing what they do, with caution to the wind, not a care in the world. It's this or that, and that's all it is. And there is no gray and there is no reason. As they say in the inner city, it's on site, right? If you see somebody from another group that you don't like, you go get them on site. You don't wait. And you give orders or you're taking orders. That's what a gang does. That's what a cartel does. I think there's a small segment of the Trump population that not only elected this man, but they are all into whatever he says. And I think if he says this election is rigged, they can be 1 in 40 in the courts, and Republican judges he appointed are laughing them out of court, saying these are some of the most frivolous and baseless lawsuits they've ever seen. And his base, that small core of it, will not believe it. They won't believe anything other than this election was rigged.
Well, I mean, anytime you believe that much in anything when the facts say otherwise, you're a bigot, and that's just a fact. Whether it comes to religion or other things, and it's interesting. It's always curious to me why people believe that much in anything, whether it's the Philadelphia Eagles or the Donald Trump, political team or whatever it is, political philosophy. It's, I don't know why you go down that road, but I will tell you that I see it firsthand. I don't know if I told you, but here in Spokane for the past 2 weekends on this overpass,
yeah,
there's been people with American flags draped over the overpass, dressed in like Civil War garb, with big signage talking about how Trump won and we have to protect the Constitution. And they have like this scoreboard for like, and Biden and Trump, and they're encouraging people to like get out of their cars and place like a mark, like they're having their own election, like tallying votes for Biden or Trump on the scoreboard, like it's proving that Trump won, right? And so this is like 2 weekends in a row, and so I don't really have any more commentary as to how he's raising money or what he's going to do with that money, etc. But to your point about this loyal group of followers, clearly, I mean,
Trump is gang. Trump is gang. I have this theory that a lot of these people have always wanted to identify with something at their core, and this is the one thing that they can get unified on, right?
That's a good cult leader, I guess. Yeah.
He does it well. His communications director resigned, which you can read the tea leaves. She was fired. Why? Because there is going to be no communication from the White House. And yet, despite that, he's still bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars. It is interesting to me, and we mentioned this a couple of months ago. We mentioned that if Biden won, I was curious to see if a lot of the white supremacists and the extremists that were so vocal and open about their violence and intimidation, and I'm speaking just to the ones, because you can believe whatever you want, right? You have that right. But just to the ones that were being violent and breaking laws, if they were going to begin to get visits from the FBI and if indictments would start. And I couldn't help but notice an article earlier mentioning that one of these better known groups that was very supportive of Mr. Trump and that Trump acknowledged is all of a sudden getting those visits. And, I have I'll put my tinfoil hat on now. I have a belief that a lot of these extremists on both sides, the left and the right, are federal informants. I do believe that, I'll conspiracy theory it up here. I do believe that a lot of them are paid informants that are paid to agitate on both the left and the right. It's part of why I refuse to get involved with anything unless you directly threaten me physically. It's just a joke to me. It's not real. It's like Twitter, right? You respond to a bot that has an opinion, and you don't even know if you're really talking to a person. Why expend energy on something that may or may not even be real? Be a good community member. Be a good citizen. Be a good American. Go donate to a food bank. Go volunteer somewhere. Go do something that'll better your community if you really want to advance the democracy and make your community safer and better. Don't get out there and stab and shoot each other over nothing. That doesn't make sense to me. But with that said, listen, the past several years, I've never seen so many laws broken and then advertised in videos for recruiting purposes. And that's forever. So for all you people out there on both sides that were out there putting your face on stuff, and you started websites and you had podcasts, and all of it was based on intimidation and threats and physical acts of violence against people, I would be very careful, and I would start saving money for an attorney, because you're likely to get a lot more visits. I don't think today is going to be the last time that groups are visited by the FBI, and I do see a lot of indictments coming down the pike.
It was weird there for a while.
It wasn't just me, right, Nick?
Yeah.
You could just assault people and not get in trouble, and you even get like a Medal of Honor for it. It was odd. It's the craziest time. Again, I'll compare it to gangbanging in inner cities. People on Instagram Live, and they're showing guns and they're yelling and they're threatening the opposition. And look, man, I mean, everybody's got the right to do whatever they want to do. But if you're going to threaten someone and actually act it out, you may not want to put that on camera. I don't know. Call me crazy.
Not in today's world.
Not in today's world, unless you're a Trump kid or Giuliani, which rumor has it have been asking for preemptive pardons. Have you heard of preemptive pardons before? Because just when you think you've heard it all from this administration, I wake up to this on Monday, Tuesday.
I've never heard of them, but I like the alliteration, and I'm sure they'll go for it.
And again, I think it perfectly encapsulates the difference between the 1%, the real inner circle of the Trump staff. Michael Flynn just got pardoned despite pleading guilty twice, right? I didn't know you could plead guilty and then get pardoned. But again, if you're in the know, if you're within that core group, I can at least understand why you can, take some liberties with the legalities of your actions, because you're eligible for apparently preemptive pardons. But again, the people on the street that are fighting and rioting and hurting each other and threatening to do all sorts of things on the internet and then acting them out and thinking they're not going to get in trouble. I got news for you guys. Mr. Trump isn't going to pardon you, and he's not going to pay your lawyer fees. You're just going to go to prison. That's all that's going to happen. And that will happen for most of the people that engaged in that stuff. It's not going to happen to anybody close to Trump because I guess preemptive pardons are a thing now.
But you are going to get another check from Mr. Biden and Ms. Yellen, and you can use that check to buy groceries that are ever more expensive because of the inflation that is now manifesting in the commodity world, all the while complaining about the politicians who are in office, past and present and future.
Let's talk about Miss Yellen. For all the talk about, Mr. Biden being a radical and associating with the Radical Four and the Squad, and he's going to take our guns and the same stuff you hear anytime a Democrat gets elected, right? He's a socialist, which I don't know if you've paid attention to monetary policy in this country or fiscal policy in this country the past 8 years or 4 years. No, 8 years, actually, going back to Ms. Yellen being at the Fed. What we have is corporate socialism in America. That is the policy. I mean, don't be tricked into thinking that the little $1,200 that Citizens had was that was the biggest part of the pie. The biggest part of the pie went to the corporations, as it always does. And so, Miss Yellen, I don't believe we touched on her nomination the last time because we took a week off. I think it makes monetary policy as predictive as ever, right?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I mean, you think you're going to get someone in there like Warren, and maybe that's what voters would have wanted, then it's interesting that it's sort of the same old status quo, right, with Yellen, and we know her dovish stance clearly because as the head of the Fed, we saw her actions, and so it's crazy, not crazy that it's more of the same, right?
More of the same. Let's talk about where things are starting to change. The House just passed a bill decriminalizing marijuana at the federal level. I have a couple of thoughts about the timing. My couple of thoughts are as follows. First, great. 222 Democrats and 5 Republicans. Oh, and 1 Libertarian, the one, right? Justin voted in support of the bill, while 158 Republicans and 6 Democrats voted against it. Again, I don't understand why the Republican Party, which aligns itself with small government, supposedly in theory or historically, and freedom of speech and the Second Amendment and all these other freedoms that are supposed to be guaranteed. I don't know why they are so hell-bent on preventing people from going to prison for smoking small amounts of marijuana, whether you smoke or not. That's my first thought. My second thought is, why are we wasting time during a pandemic where in California they're mandating lockdowns again? Many businesses are going out of business permanently. Everyday Americans are still making somehow that $1,200 stretch from 5 months ago or 4 months ago. Why are we passing a bill that is likely not going to gain any traction once it hits the Senate, because it is a Republican-led Senate, when we are in the midst of a pandemic and Americans are hungry, man? It hurts my heart to see the food lines here in Dallas and in Houston. I'm talking tens of miles. Why are we wasting our fucking time doing this instead of coming together as a country and passing relief for people that really need it? It's just disgusting to me, Nick. Look, you and I talked off air a little bit. My biggest frustration of today was I went to get tickets for a David Chappelle show. And this kind of ties into the economy, right? Joe Rogan decided he no longer wanted to live under California's rule. The taxes were too high. It was too crowded. He wanted some more freedom. His capital and himself did what capital does. It goes where it's treated best. He came to Texas. He moved to Austin, bought a beautiful house by the lake. He's been loving it, right? Built a studio, back at it. So there was a pop-up show announced, a residency, 10 shows, or 10 days, 30 shows with Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan and friends, which, as you can imagine, I was extremely excited about. Dave Chappelle is one of my favorite comedians. I think he's one of the best of all time. I think his storytelling and his timing is top notch. And I've seen him live a couple of times and have thoroughly enjoyed myself. And so I waited until noon when the tickets were on sale, and I went ahead and tried to get the tickets. And long story short, I hit a wrong button, and the tickets to 30 shows sold out in 12 seconds. 12 seconds. You make one mistake, you weren't getting them. I bring that up because the reason I was comfortable in going to this show is, one, it was outdoors. Two, with my ticket purchase, I get access to a COVID test, which would give me my results within 10 minutes. So I, as a consumer, was guaranteed to know that all the staff members and every person at the venue, the outdoor venue, would not only be socially distant, but would also be COVID negative. And so I look at that, and again, it speaks to the two Americas, right? Food lines that are miles long, and meanwhile, if you have the funds and you can score a ticket, you get the privilege of watching some great comedy. You don't have to worry about COVID. You could have drinks, food, comedy, the whole thing, and everybody around you is COVID negative. It's just, there's such a disconnect in the world, but it's really apparent to me, not just in the country, but even in the city that I live in, right outside of Austin. And it's just, I think it speaks volumes to our priorities. I don't understand why 9, 10, 11 months into this pandemic, we still don't have a way to effectively test in mass, right? Like, we can do it for the Chappelle Show. We could do it for NBA players. We can do it for boxers. We can do it for hockey players. We could do it to the well-off, for the well-off, but we can't do it for everyone else. And I don't think it's that we can't. I think we don't want to.
Well, sure. I mean, I don't know why you come to expect anything different from the U.S. government, right? It's why I don't expect anything different. It's sort of how I operate in my life. I don't expect anything from them, and about the vote from the marijuana specifically. I mean, who knows why they're doing it? I don't think it's time, certainly not this year, to get it passed at the federal level. We'll see what Joe Biden has to say executive order wise. And then as far as the testing and the disparity that COVID has exacerbated, I mean, same thing here in Spokane. It's indoor dining is closed in Washington State, but you can set up a massive heated tent, and if you want to rent a table at a tent, you can certainly do that. And so, I mean, there's like articles in the paper about how you can rent tables, which restaurants are offering, etc. And the same thing with the food lines and the record demand at the food bank. And so, one thing I find interesting is like the local restaurant owners essentially complaining. I mean, obviously they're dramatically affected by lockdowns, right? Which is beyond their control. But you see people almost starting to fight amongst themselves. Like, one thing that's happened here in Spokane this week is, it's kind of funny. We got our first Chick-fil-A, right? And so there's been lines, and people were camped out. This one guy camped in a tent for 14 hours to be the first to get a chicken sandwich at the Chick-fil-A here in Spokane. And there's been articles in the paper and people posting on social media, restaurant owners saying that, you get people lined up around the block to go through the fast food drive-through, and they can't, have diners inside. But B, they're saying, why are people going to line up around fast food when they could get takeout from here? And it's like, well, a $5 or $6 or $7 chicken sandwich is different from a $15 burger, right? Where plus then you got to add gratuity or gratuities expected, etc. And so I just think that for the vast majority, people ain't got it, and so they go for the cheaper option, right? But it's just interesting to observe it and see people's different takes and see how it's affecting people in real time. And I think it's going to continue to affect people for a while, right?
I agree. Let's talk about more change. Back to the market. Some pretty big news out of Midas Gold. Midas Gold now has appointed Miss Laurel Sayer as president and CEO. Mr. Stephen Quinn, who is a friend in the space to you and I. A world-class act has steered the Midas ship incredibly well, on the verge of getting its permit, weeks, if not days, away from announcing the results from the latest feasibility study. He has resigned. And so that to me seems like Mr. Paulson, which of course is 44% owner, I believe, of Midas shares. I believe Midas Gold is now in play. You'll recall that 2 years ago, he did a similar rollout with Detour Gold, which, you know, he was able to sell successfully at a pretty penny. And I think Midas Gold is a takeout target. We knew it was beforehand, but I think it's going to expedite that process. I don't think Midas will make it to the permitting phase, which again is just, you know, 3/4 away, according to the schedule. Any thoughts on that, Nick? I know you have them. I know you follow the company, as do I.
Oh yeah, I mean Midas obviously has a great asset. All the advancements that it's made, and the positioning as far as being an environmental steward and a critical metals future provider, and then the shepherding through the permitting process can be attributed to Stephen. And it's tough because you can disagree with the way it was done, and you can have loyalties and be friends with certain people, and you can also know that it's probably ultimately what's best for the company, right? Because of the past results that you speak of. And so I can have different opinions as a shareholder and as a friend, I guess. And we'll see. I mean, the proof is always in the pudding, right? We'll see what the next few months hold, what any potential takeout offers are, at what price they come, and we'll see what the end results are. But Paulson and Co. clearly know what they're doing. Ended up getting a significant premium for Detour there, and turning that around. And so, as a shareholder, I welcome them, and as a friend, I'm sad to see Stephen go, but we likely haven't seen the last of him in the junior and development resource space, and hope to work with him again.
Well, I know from reaching out that he's already had multiple CEO offers in his inbox just today. And again, the news we record on Friday, published on Monday. The news is not even a day old, and so it's not surprising that he already has offers on the table that he's considering. And I agree with you. I don't think it'll be long before we sort out where Mr. Quinn will be soon.
It's a year of change, though. It seems like.
Yep, and that was kind of the theme, right? Whether it's our views towards marijuana decriminalization, or the companies drilling properties that have been dormant for years, or turnover at a company like Midas Gold that's been so exceptionally well taken care of by Mr. Quinn and the team. It's definitely a year for change, societally, economically. It's been an interesting year, which brings me to the little Monoliths. Did you read the story about the Monoliths?
I have seen. I haven't followed closely, but I know about its appearance and now apparently disappearance. Is that right?
They've appeared in Utah. They've appeared in New Mexico. They've appeared in Romania. And did you read about who put them there? I'm going to spoiler alert. If you don't want to know, cover your ears.
No, I don't know.
All right. So everybody was hoping, hey, maybe 2020 is so crazy that the aliens are finally going to go ahead and give us a hand, right? Because God knows we need it.
But the aliens have already come this year, Gerardo. It's old news.
But we thought we already knew that they had been here. I think a lot of people had hoped that, hey, they might want to talk to us now, right? These could be markers to engage us in dialogue, is some of the stuff that I was reading. And no, it turns out that it's a group called the Most Famous Artist. It's a global creative community based in Santa Fe. And so this New Mexico artist and the collective is taking responsibility for these stainless steel monoliths, which popped up all around the world. The quote from the group, founder, Matty Mo, was, I can say we are well known for stunts of this nature, and at this time we are offering authentic art objects through Monoliths as a service. I cannot issue additional images at this time, but I can promise more on this in the coming days and weeks. So,
Monoliths as a service.
Monoliths as a service. Somebody commented, and I agree, what a better way to end this fucked up year than let the world briefly think aliens made contact, only to be disappointed that it's just the most famous artist playing tricks again. So, mystery solved, guys. The aliens ain't talking to us. We know they're around, but no communication that we know of yet. Sad indeed. You know what else is sad for a lot of people if they're not careful? Talking about the gains they made in Bitcoin if they don't declare it to the IRS if you happen to live in the US. Did you see that?
Interested to see. The IRS wants to know, if you bought, sold, or exchanged. Yeah.
It's an asset class now, right? I mean, love it or hate it. You can call it what you want. But if the IRS is putting it on its form, I think it's here to stay. And just again, as I was cautioning my extremist listeners out there, now I'll caution my Bitcoin profiteers. Be careful what you say in public forums or on podcasts or anywhere if you don't plan on declaring your gains or losses, because that would be illegal, correct, Nick? If you actually profited or lost and you did not declare it to the IRS, and we would never, ever, ever, ever encourage that type of behavior here at Bizarro World.
No, we would not do that, but you would be correct. Although I would wonder how that would be enforced if these exchanges like Coinbase or et cetera are going to issue you some sort of whatever 1099 or some other sort of to form to report that, or it's going to be like gold, right? Where if you pay with cash or if you pay with some other way that's not reported, right? Then how is it ultimately going to be reported unless you, of course, as a responsible and honest and trustworthy taxpayer, put it on the form yourself?
Correct. The form says even if you were gifted cryptos, you are still expected to check yes on the front of your tax return.
No, I read. Yeah, it's interesting.
Interesting indeed. We have to talk. Oh, you had a thought. I heard it.
Well, it's just interesting. I mean, because we're debating this week. It seems like, one of the hot ideas or questions is, the Bitcoin versus gold, especially as Bitcoin was going up while gold was going down. And is it a currency or a commodity? And you can make arguments either way, certainly trading like more of a commodity in the past week or so. But, nonetheless, it's an asset class, right? And the IRS, and I think it speaks to a bigger thing as far as the IRS is concerned. One, a couple of things, one, it wants to track it, right? I mean, it wants to know who's owning it, who's dabbling in Bitcoin. I think that's one thing that the government wants to know. The other thing is that the government's fucking broke, right? And so the government wants to tax everything that the government can tax and is going to need to pay for all these programs that have been approved and that they're getting ready to do more of. So whether that's, legalizing marijuana or taxing Bitcoin or whatever it is, capital gains tax with Biden. I mean, I think the government wants its pound, right? And so that's the other aspect of it. And so which speaks to the reason that people want Bitcoin and gold anyway, right?
Absolutely. And apparently right now, and again, I've been completely wrong about this thus far. I still believe you have a nasty rally coming that'll be historic in nature, but the dollar, good gracious, talk about the collapse. It's sitting there just barely holding the 90 level, Nick. Keith McCullough's been incredibly accurate on this. You've been incredibly accurate on this. I've been incredibly wrong in my thesis that, and time's not up. I thought it would happen by year end Q1. So let's see if the next few weeks or months make a truth sayer out of me when it comes to the dollar. But I've been completely wrong about this. I didn't see it falling this far before. Again, I still think it's coming, but a historic squeeze higher, but it's barely holding on that 90 level. And so interesting times indeed. Capital, like Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle is looking to go where it is treated best. And right now, the dollar isn't it according to the vote that it's making, right?
No, but the part you did get right is that now gold is moving with the dollar, as we talked about at the beginning of this podcast. And so we'll see what rates do, right? I don't think this rise in rates is permanent. And Christ, Gerardo, this upward move in rates still puts them at historic lows with, a large trillions. What's the number? $17 trillion of negative yielding debt around the world, just because the 10 years had a bit of a rally here. I mean, that doesn't negate the larger theme at hand.
Agreed. And in breaking news, guess who else is moving to Austin apparently? Tesla CEO, Mr. Elon Musk, says he plans to move to Texas. So, we just got Hewlett Packard announced this week that it's moving its headquarters out here. Welcome to HP. Tesla, of course, building a gigafactory and a processing facility already. Joe Rogan. It's been a good month for Austin and for Texas as a whole.
The same thing. I mean, we're talking about, government taxing, right? And fleeing high tax jurisdictions, something you've talked about. One of the reasons you live where you live. One of the reasons I live where I live. They just announced another Amazon facility here. They just opened one that employs like 12 or 1,500 people. They just announced another bigger one. They just bought the land they just bought the land for. So, I mean, that's the trend, right?
I can't wait for people to be able to get back and work, right? There's a lot of hardworking people out there that are struggling to make it because the government won't allow them to make a living in an honest, decent way, the way they're accustomed to. And so, it's good to see people voting with their dollar. And, again, I don't think it's a coincidence, as you said, that, a lot of these states are mandating lockdowns and hiking tax fees. And meanwhile, not even adhering to the same mandates that they want the citizenry to adhere to, right? The hypocrisy of it all. We had a little bit of that here in Austin. Our Mayor Adler
I saw
announced, he did a video telling everybody to stay home and stay away from, your relatives and make a sacrifice for the better of the community. This motherfucker was in Mexico at his daughter's wedding when he recorded it. I mean, at least have the damn decency to record it a week before or a week after when you're actually at home. Don't record it from Cabo when you're at your daughter's wedding. And meanwhile, I've forsaken some of the finer things in life the past 9 months because I want to do the responsible thing for my loved ones and people I care about and humanity in general. I don't want to accidentally get somebody sick and it has, more serious consequences. But just again, the hypocrisy of it all is something I should not be surprised and I'm not surprised by, but it always angers me. That hasn't changed.
Well, it's hypocrisy, obviously, and you're going to see that from the politicians from time to time.
You know what you're not going to see anytime soon? A movie. Not in a movie theater. Yeah, not at a movie theater. And, this is a paradigm shift. I don't know if you saw the announcement, but Warner Brothers will send its entire 2021 slate to a streaming service called HBO Max. And whatever theaters are open at the same time.
Which is not a lot, yeah.
It is not a lot. I mean, we're talking $100 million movies. The Matrix 4, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman 1984. These are all movies that we'll be able to stream from the comfort of our own home. And I gotta say,
as it should be. I know you like the theater, Gerardo, but I've always argued against it.
I like it so much that I built one here at home, and I'm very thankful that I was able to do that. It's gotten me by here these past 9 months. But yes, I do love going to the movies. I'm a traditionalist in that sense, but you should absolutely have the option of doing it from home. And I will say, if these big budget movies are able to make money under this new model, it's a paradigm shift. Absolutely. It will never be the same if this works. And so
Netflix is doing it to some extent. I mean, they've still got a bit of proving to do, but Netflix is doing, through the subscription model, in-house production and competing at whatever the award shows are, the Emmys and
Yeah.
Oscars, etc. So, we'll see if these other studio houses can do it and how it plays out for sure.
Agreed. No, I'm looking forward to it. So I know you wanted to talk about, and I'm not sure because my Spanish brain kicks in and my English brain kicks in at the same time when I read this. I don't know if it's modelorama or modelorama, but can we talk? So which one of those two are we speaking about, Nick?
It's the first, Gerardo, which
Modelorama.
I assume you know about, if not are familiar with. Is that right?
A little bit. You can't
So
enlighten us.
So what is modelorama?
You tell everybody.
I've only known about it this week, and so you're going to get just basically a stock tip of the week story for me, and a little bit of story about Modelorama, because it's basically a convenience store chain or a bodega chain in Mexico and elsewhere in Latin America, but it's owned by AB InBev. Did you know that it was owned by AB InBev?
I did indeed.
Oh, you did. So there's a company that I'm a shareholder of that I've been following for a while called Visibility. In fact, they were a sponsor of Small Cap Stock Digest for a bit while we had that website. And, for a while they've been doing kind of like community policing via video cameras, essentially, but they're linked to an app where the community can interact and report things and get real-time alerts. And so it's been actually well adopted, and you can read more about this and weigh in on whether or not you think it will continue to work. But politicians even have started to embrace it and come to get reelected by aligning themselves with this visibility application that has been, piloted and now proven in a couple towns, because the communities seem to like it. Because it's not like, and these were some of my concerns early on with visibility, it's not like Big Brother stuff. It's more like, and these deployments, community policed, right? Like you sign up for the app and then you're in charge of reporting, sort of like Neighborhood Watch, but with video cameras and an app. So anyway, the stock has been sort of faltering. They had to raise a bit of money here a couple of months ago, and they got bent over, and the stock was down, I don't know, 10 cents or maybe even a bit lower. But then they get this deal this week with Modelorama to start putting these display systems in the stores with an ultimate goal. And I didn't even know there were this many stores, of going into 100,000 of them. Like, how many stores are there, Gerardo?
There's at least hundreds of thousands. I mean, you can't walk in my town of Montescobedo, Zacatecas. You can't walk more than 3 blocks. And this is a small town, right? This is 10,000 people that live there. You can't walk more than 3 blocks without one of these, tienditas, small stores, local. On the East Coast, they would call them bodegas. I don't know what the heck they would call them on the West Coast, but they're just small, little privately owned stores, little corner shops. And so, you scale that out. It's a country with over 130 million people, and there's at least hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of these little stores. And I'll share the darker side of this. This is also the Modelorama model is actually one that the cartels have used very effectively, because when a cartel comes into your little town and then kills off the group that was in there prior to and says, we're the law of the land for the next, until we get killed off, the first place that they go to usually is the tienditas, the small stores. They go to the little Modeloramas and they say, hey, we're here just to sell the things that we want to sell. We'll have a worker, working in shifts, and they'll be posted up here. If anybody gives you problems, you let us know. We don't want to interfere with your business. We just don't want you to interfere with ours. And we'll have one of our spokespeople here offering the finest in cocaine, marijuana, and all your illicit delights.
They go to the impresarios.
You got it. You got it. And they go with the small ones because of how many of them there are, right? They go to the little stores. They go to the little Coca-Cola shops or the Grupo Modelo shops that that are in every corner seemingly. And so, that would be the equivalent. And this is why I caution everyone when they talk about civil war and, take our country back and all the woohoo stuff that people say. Be very careful with that. Most people have never seen what it's like, for a group to just come in, with M50s in the back and 40 or 50 vehicles and everybody with helmets and tanks and just take over an entire city and start selling drugs out of your little stores. I don't know.
Well, and so visibility is going to find itself in the middle of this little company, because so what they're going to do is a display goes in each of these stores, right? And the display has a camera. So when somebody walks by it, if it's a female or if it's a male, they're registering their face and they're running it against the database, right? And trying to catch criminals. And so the company is saying that the impresarios want this. AB, who owns the stores,
I'm sure they want it,
is saying they're going to put this in up to 100,000 stores. And so the idea is, right, Gerardo walks by it and the screen flips on and starts giving you a commercial for whatever, Modelo, Especial, or tequila, or some other, and this is how visibility makes money, some chocolate bar or chicharrones or whatever it is, right? And then they're getting advertising money for the ads that are coming, the personalized ad, but they're also scanning and using it as a criminal thing, right? This is a pretty big deal. And so anyway, the shares that were at 10 cents a couple of months ago and 14 cents this week before the deal was announced went to 45 cents today, 48 cents today. Just incredible if you look at the chart. And so anyway, you get your stock tip of the week there, your informative story, and you also learn how I find myself in the middle of Modelorama, which I didn't even know was a thing before, and I knew you would know about.
I'm going to connect some dots that I shouldn't connect for people, but it'll be very obvious anyway eventually when a lot of these displays get kicked to all hell. Does visibility have any defense contract connections?
I don't believe they do. I don't even think they install them. I think they're just the software providers. So I don't believe they provide the hardware either. I think the installation and the hardware is provided by someone else, and visibility provides the software that runs on. They have a partnership with Intel also that runs on Intel-backed stuff that allows this to run without internet access in the cloud. Don't ask me how all that works. That's above my pay grade. But the answer to your question is no. What they've done is partnered with the cities and towns so far.
Well, the answer sounds like yes, if Intel is the group behind the technology, right? Because we know Intel has security connections.
Well, they're not Intel, but they're partnered with Intel. So, I mean, tangentially, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So the dots that I probably shouldn't be connecting, I think it's a national security thing where they're trying to get footage in real time in these very strategic locations, small towns, small tienditas, local communities, areas where they want information. And yeah, sure, it can be very profitable. But the other thing it can absolutely do is provide a lot of information to Mexico's government and the United States government, which if you listen to our discussion a couple of weeks ago about the general that was arrested for drug trafficking in New York and then miraculously pardoned by our attorney general, Mr. Barr, I would say that there's probably some duplicity in the effort. We'll know within the next 12 months whether or not these displays are readily accepted and able to transition into everyday Mexican society.
Yeah, we'll see. I knew you would have an opinion. I knew you would know about it.
I think there's going to be a lot of broken Modelorama displays in the middle of the street, Nick. But we'll see.
We will see. And I'll put up a link to the press release.
I like it. Interesting stuff. I think on my end, I got my 2 weeks worth of therapy, which I absolutely needed. Anything else that we want to touch on? People, things, places, stocks, anything?
No, I think that was good. We're about to hit the 60-minute mark, and I look forward to doing it again next week.
I as well. Have yourself an excellent birthday, Nick. It's great to be back on with you. I would caution everybody out there that this consolidation in the gold price, which isn't that big of a consolidation, I would caution everyone that it may last 3, 4, 5 more weeks, but it's going to present and is presenting some spectacular opportunities out there in names that we've repeated here often, the Magnas of the world, Almaden with the recent pullback, Midas now, which is in play as a takeout target more than it was beforehand, because I think Paulson's put that in play. There's a lot out there to like. I mentioned New Plastrodome Gold and Nevada Sunrise. Those results are still not here. We're waiting and hoping that in the next couple of weeks we get to peek at what Kinsley Mountain has to offer. Rare earth stocks are heating up. Lithium space is heating up. Copper is at 351. It's a lot to be thankful for, Nick.
Everything is awesome.
Everything is awesome. I am Gerardo Del Real, along with my co-host, Mr. Nick Hodge. This was episode 96 of Bizarro World. Send us off, Nick.
See ya.